You've heard of the Great Resignation. How about the Great Embrace? This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the URL for our website, and you'll learn all about us there, including our partners, Deep Discount, which we would like for you to visit by going to our site, FocusGroupRadio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo and start your shopping extravaganza. Lots of great things there, from movies and books to music and games. Okay.
God, you sound like a 1980s TV commercial
or a carnival barker. Come see the bearded lady. I wonder what happened. We were driving up to the house the other day, and we went by some parking lot in Yonkers. There's a Macy's. It's big, like a mall, and they had a big top set up. The red and white striped thing. And we're like, oh, it's a big top. Yeah, I don't think they have things like, the Aqua Boy, the Bearded Lady, the Freak Show, right?
There used to be one at the Danbury Fair.
Yes.
The Claude. Come see the Claude. I mean, the guy was like a thalidomide baby or something that they would call the Claude man. And I kind of felt sorry for him, but he had it down. He must have just been, collecting dollar bills all day long. You'd go in and you'd see him. He was sitting there, and he would just show his 2 feet. With like
poor thing,
2 claws in his hands, and you could touch him if you wanted to, and the kids would leave. But of course, the illustration, he looked like Rock Lobster. They had him there with the.
Oh, naturally.
Yeah. So
when you were a kid, did your parents take you to the Barnum Museum down in Bridgeport?
No.
Oh, yeah. It's still there. It's the P.T. Barnum Museum. I remember the day my mom took us down, and there was a glass display case that featured the uniform that General Tom Thumb, or it was like a short guy used to wear, and he was very small, looked like a doll outfit. And I remember Laura was with us. It was just the two of us and my mom, and Laura's like, so people pay to see this, and I was like, yes, people do.
Way before her years. Well, there's the Mutter Museum in Philly where you can see all kinds of things. And I was going to use, as one of our business birthdays, I was going to use the famous Siamese twins.
Oh, yeah.
Chang and Cheng.
Mm-hmm. Those are the ones I see in the black and white photographs all the time with the waistcoats, and
right.
They were, yeah.
And they made a fortune. They traveled around. Now, they were both married. I didn't know if the story would work for business birthday, but they did make a bunch of money going to these carnivals and quote-unquote freak shows. But they were both married and had, between them, some ungodly amount of children. And they would spend a night, or a week at each wife's house or whatever. But I can't imagine being conjoined and they had sex. I guess the woman would have sex with one and the other would just lay there. I don't know.
So if the other one's laying there and he's not supposed to be involved, is he reading a book, smoking a cigarette?
That's the questions I want to ask. If Donahue was around or any of those people, then they would have asked those questions, I suppose. I don't know.
I think Donahue would have asked. Merv Griffin would have avoided it. And who else did we used to watch as the talk shows?
Johnny Carson.
Mike Douglas. Probably. It was up to the world of Donahue to ask those piercing questions like, okay, when you're at your wife's place, what are you doing?
Well, it could have been Springer. Maybe Jerry Springer could have done it. Of course, he's no longer on either anymore.
Oh,
Jerry.
God.
Oh, Jerry.
He is kind of on, though. Isn't he alive and well at the Orange Ones rallies in some ways?
Jerry Springer? No.
No, not him, but the behavior, the insanity, the bouncers, the whole bit.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah. Jerry's now a judge. Not that he's been trained for it. I mean, a judge as much as you and I could be sitting there and rendering verdict.
You're not joking, are you?
No. I clicked through. I saw him sitting there. He's got the Connecticut flag behind him. And he's talking about people have issues like they would on his TV show, except now he's in a court of law. And as the bouncer, set up kind of a la Judge Judy.
Judy. Mm-hmm.
And there'd be a problem with, the baby's daddy and it's kind of a combination of everything. There's paternity tests. There's you took my car, you crashed my car, you're not the father, I'm the father. All that sort of stuff. I, for a long time, had a running list. I can't find it we used to watch Jerry Springer at work. I thought it was important. So
What lesson were you gleaning from that?
I don't know, but I thought it was important. So, so actually, Karen Allen made a little sign that said, "Do not disturb watching Jerry Springer." Outside my door at the TV. Everybody came in, and we would see what's going on with America. But we had these list of quotes. I wish I could find them. My life. Or Jerry, he needs a DNA test. One yells, and the husband says, "You don't even know what DNA means." She goes, "Yes, I do. Drug and alcohol."
Drug in
Alcohol.
alcohol.
And there was another one. This relationship is supposed to be 50. This relationship is supposed to be 50-50, not 50-25. It was like, where is she getting?
Not 75-25,
Yes.
right?
And Jerry would just, then the other one call the other one a whore. She goes, "You're nothing but a whore." HORE. And the crowd goes wild.
Now I see why you made this required viewing.
Yeah. So anyway, I those are the three I remember off the top of my head, but there was a lot of great quotes. I don't know if they fed them to them or not, to the people. Some of them, it was just so natural.
I'd like to point out that while you made this required viewing, these were not, based on the quotes you just said, these were not what I would call the profile of the Subaru driver.
No. No, by no means. By no means.
All right. Without further ado, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So there was a number of things, of course, this week that caught my eye, but this one did in particular because it was something that was so ubiquitous when you and I were growing up and in the time of HIV and AIDS in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s. So the headline is, "Target's new Pride shirt has one historic queer organization seeing red." So Target for years has just done a special line of clothing around June Pride. And it's rainbows and the various things you would see that were LGBTQ friendly. And most of the things had to be bought online. And of course, they were target of boycotts every year because of it, and people saying they're not going to shop there. But the one T-shirt they did this year, they said that while there's a new Pride season upon us, be sure to pick up some of the trendy merch from Target. Unfortunately, among the adorable rainbow jumpsuits and inclusive they/them pins is a piece that one historic LGBTQ organization is speaking out about. So they did a collaboration with, or Target did the collaboration with a group called the Fluid Project. And they released a shirt, which is essentially the inverted pink triangle with the phrase "silence equals death." Of course, we all know that sounds very familiar. The black T-shirt, the pink triangle, silence equals death, and white writing. So it was from the historic AIDS Advocacy Foundation, ACT UP.
Yep.
They went to Twitter immediately and to confirm that Target was in fact selling the shirt, and asked both, or reminded the Fluid Project and Target that they were using that without permission. They also confirmed that they would not be receiving any proceeds from any of it. So ACT UP was calling on their supporters to buy directly if they were in fact interested in a "Silence Equals Death" T-shirt, to go to the ACT UP site, which might be somewhat of a silver lining, they said, because their site has had so much traffic that the site had to be taken down because of the high volume of traffic. And they've since, this article came out of from the web news site. I don't know if it's news, entertainment, Queerty site. And they reached
just a sidebar for a second. Well, it came out of the I don't know, news, entertainment.
I don't know. What would you call Queerty?
It's news when they scrape other news items, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, look, we all check it. So
yeah, it's a lot of clickbait too. So they called. So a lot of people are saying this is an uncharacteristic step or a misstep for Target, which has donated millions of dollars to the likes of Glisten, HRC, Out and Equal, and many more. And what they've done is Queerty had contacted Target for a comment, and as of us recording, there is no update from Target yet as to how they're going to either fix this or remedy the situation. My guess is they'll give proceeds to ACT UP. My guess is what they'll figure it out. I picked this story. It's a short story, obviously. I picked it though because this goes back to, you and I have had this struggle with a number of organizations saying they don't need either an employee resource group to run things by that might be LGBTQ,
Mm-hmm.
or agencies that at least specialize in this.
Yep.
If you and I were working with Target and they came up with this, we'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, for starters, and I was going to ask you, like the silence equals death in the triangle, just by stint of the fact that it was used by ACT UP, is it not copyrighted or protected at all?
I would assume so, but it's
and you would have flagged that if you were working with Target, you said, hey, we want to check on this. Do we have the right to use it, right?
It'd be no different if they just took and used the HRC symbol, the blue block with the yellow,
the flag,
the yellow equals in it. And again, if you were an agency that didn't know better, perhaps, say, oh, we're going to do this great shirt, and somebody would again say, do you know that's the HRC logo? You just can't use that. Mm-hmm. Or are we donating money to the organization and raising money? And if so, let's contact them, because then we can do a cross promotion with them.
Yeah.
And they can send a note out to or an alert out to their members. So this was done. My guess is this was done, and either the people in marketing at Target were unaware that something like this had existed 25, 30 years ago.
Because all the marketing people are, how old do you think?
Have left the building.
Well, they're probably in their late 20s, early 30s, and you're right. They would not have known that. When you sent that over, I was curious as to how the story was going to unfold, and I think that it's two-pronged. I'm glad you brought it up. It's a misstep, but also, again, it's know your history, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, as with all things caught my eye, mine could not be any more different, and it concerns Lake Mead, which is a place I've actually visited a couple times. Every time Tim and I used to go out to Vegas, we had them as a client for a while, visit Las Vegas, we would take a trip to Hoover Dam and do a tour.
Love that dam.
Love the dam. Well, the dam is not really holding back much water these days, as I think we've all heard from the drought, etc. And so with me, mine was about what happens when the water level goes down. Well, I'll tell you. A decades-old barrel was found with a body inside of it towards the bottom of the lake, and so the headline
was it Jean Benet?
we need to revisit that whole remember that whole thing, Jean Benet Ramsey. Drought-starved Lake Mead reveals a decades-old barrel with a body inside. Water levels at the Nevada reservoir have depleted to such a level that our officials predict more grim finds in the future. A metal barrel containing the remains of a person killed about 4 decades ago was found on Sunday on the shore of Nevada's Lake Mead. And this is 2 Sundays ago, I'm sorry. A discovery that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said was made possible by an ongoing drought. It's really odd in the sense that had the lake never receded, we would never have discovered this body. And that's the thing I find most fascinating about this. If someone commits a crime, they throw a gun in a river, or they, in this case, they put a body in a barrel and throw it in Lake Mead. We're done. We're done.
Are you surprised the body survived? I guess it was close.
Skeletal remains, since it was in the water. Lieutenant Spencer of the police department out in Vegas said that police are trying to learn the victim's identity, and they're doing that with dental records, or they're examining the skeleton to see if there's any broken bones or things that might be identifiable. Based on the clothing and footwear that the victim was found with, investigators, so it was basically the things that survived were non-organic, like clothing and stuff like that, was the person in the barrel was killed in the mid-70s or early 80s. Experts at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, they are looking at they're getting into this too, and they're like, like what are we looking at here? Because it's really crazy, right?
Right.
So they're looking into it. They're trying to figure it out. But again, it's something they think it's a mob hit. That's where they're at right now. They're kind of like in this zone of might it be a mob hit? Because the putting the thing in the barrel. That's would you ever think of doing that?
Well, if you watch Breaking Bad, yeah.
Oh, no, seriously? You got caught into that one.
You gotta watch that show. They put the body in there with acid, though, because it eats it up.
Well, I dropped out of the show when they put a body in they put a body in a bathtub. It fell to the floor.
Oh, you just started.
Yeah.
Another 6 seasons. I thought the story was going to take another turn here. I saw something on the news about this as well. I guess most of the west of Colorado Colorado is in drought danger, or has called a drought. I don't know, what do you call it?
Oh no, and here this article finishes by saying Lake Mead and Lake Powell, which is upstream from the Hoover Dam, are the largest human-made reservoirs in the U.S., part of a system that provides water to more than 40 million people, as well as agriculture and industry in Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and across the southern border in Mexico. So as these levels drop, and we're not even talking about hydroelectricity, the dam provides a great deal of power, which Vegas uses. So big problems ahead, right? Outside of finding dead people.
Yeah. No, they're under a drought, and I don't know how it gets fixed.
Because this is all from snowpack and runoff, right?
Right.
So if you have a bad winter on the West Coast and you don't get the snowpack, you don't get the runoff, the Colorado River doesn't fill. It's been going on for a long time. But hey, Tim, you and I have been out there. How many times have we been to California in the middle of a drought and we see people watering their lawns, filling their pools, the golf course is...
the fountain's running.
Everything's running. I'm like...
You and I couldn't believe it the last time we were there, and they were under heavy drought restriction. And the hotel where we were, we couldn't believe it. Remember all the fountains, everything bouncing, running, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
And you and I took a rare walk also, and no one walks in LA, but we walked down to this place and we walked by an outdoor water feature in front of some huge house. There's like this fountain running, and Tim's like, hey, isn't there a drought going on? So there you go.
Los Angeles is, there you go, exactly. Did you take the boat on Lake Mead, or did you just
never did one of the, it's like the flat bottom boats. People go out and party, they hang out, right? Have you ever done that? I know that Pam did that once, right?
Yeah, Pam did it. That's when
Martina.
I think it was Martina or somebody's dog died. They had to put it in the cooler.
Oh, on the lake. They didn't dump it in the lake though.
No, they put it in the cooler. They'd take it back to shore. But I forget whose dog it was. It's somebody famous. And I don't know whose one it was. One of the lesbians. Anyway, as a sidebar. So hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got ourselves a business birthday and a little shop talk. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett, focusgroupradio.com. Go there, learn about us, and also find out about Unbuttoned, TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast that's also available there and on iTunes and Google Play. All the places you get your podcasts from, you'll find The Focus Group or TFG Unbuttoned, and it's focusgroupradio.com. So, I was in heaven last week, and I don't know how many of our listeners will agree with me when I say the following. Paramount Plus, the network.
Oh, my God, here we go.
They launched a new Star Trek show called Strange New Worlds. And I loved it. I loved it.
Is there anything on TV you don't love? I've never seen you and John Reganey. I've never seen. I should buy you a drool cup for Christmas.
No, we drop out. We don't watch everything through. We sometimes lose interest. And a lot of the new Star Trek shows have been that serialized format. Where the story takes 15 episodes, and we didn't grow up with that. You and I grew up with TV shows that started and ended.
So like what was the story? Did you watch one of the episodes?
Yeah, it was the premiere episode, and they go to make first contact with the planet. Things don't go well. Some things go off the rails.
Chaos ensues.
And then the captain, Christopher Pike, makes a speech about how we went through a whole host of bad problems here on Earth before we became enlightened. And they did show some clips from the the insurrection and a bunch of stuff like that. So, Star Trek's always had a little bit of a political bent to it. But beyond that, I think they just did a really good job with storytelling. It was 52 minutes, and I was like, oh, my God, it's just like the old one. You start, you end. They save the world next episode, right?
Jeez, is there a Dr. Spock and everything?
There is a Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock?
A young Mr. Spock. Everybody's there. There's Nurse Chapel, Lieutenant Uhura. No Mr. Sulu yet, no Mr. Chekhov. There is a Dr. Mabenga, who was actually a character in the original show. So he's there too, and snazzy special effects, new looking ship, and no, I was just
Is it the same sort of set?
well, very upgraded. Oh my God! If you compare what they're acting on today to what the original
The
crew did,
cardboard boxes they had before with a couple of blinkers.
remember that time during lockdown I went to the set recreation up in Fort
Yeah, at the strip
Ticonderoga.
mall.
It used to be like a grocery store, I think, or something. But the set was fantastic, and I highly recommend the trip. Anyway,
Poor Bob.
Oh,
Does
and
he have to watch this with you?
yeah, well, he actually enjoyed it. I waited for him to get home, and he
did,
actually
okay.
wraps up and he says, honey, I got to tell you, this was a good one. You know what else we started watching that our producer Matt has turned us on to, or tried to turn me on to for a long time, but I just didn't watch it. But we started, and now we're hooked. A show called Barry on HBO.
Barry. I don't know.
Yeah, Bill Hader plays a hitman who goes out to California to do a job, ends up in an acting class, falls in love with acting, and decides he doesn't want to be a hitman anymore, and it goes from there. And why am I spacing on the name all of a sudden? Who played Fonzie?
No, Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler is in Barry, and he is brilliant. He's funny. I can't say enough good things about him. So Matt has been telling me about the show for ages, and finally we started, and Bob's like, this is a winner, and each episode's 30 minutes.
Is it comedy or is it?
It's comedy, but dark comedy. But it's comedy, all right. There's some really great lines in it. It's fun, lots of fun.
Jeez, I'm gonna have to get HBO. I think.
Yeah, if you have any service, they have a lot. They have a lot that's worth watching, including the show Somebody Somewhere, which you definitely need to see at some point.
Somebody somewhere.
Somebody Somewhere. My mom turned me onto it. She's watched it like 3 or 4 times all the way through. 6 episodes, 23, 25 minutes apiece. I love it. It's great. Anyway, business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So happy birthday. Well, it would be her happy birthday. She's dead, but born May 11th, 1906. She died August 9th, 1980. At only 74 years old.
It's young.
I know. Jacqueline Cochran. Jacqueline Cochran.
Cochran. Yeah.
Or Jackie Cochran. She pioneered women's. She was an American pilot and a business executive. Now, she was friends with Nancy Love. We had done Nancy Love a few months ago as one of our business birthdays, and I thought, gosh, this can't be another person just like her. But in
Wait
fact,
a minute. Nancy Love has something
Love
named
Field.
after her in O'Hare, right?
yeah, and then there was Love Field, and there
She's
was
a
the Highway.
pilot. She was a pilot.
Yeah, so these were some of the first women pilots.
Okay.
What's unique about Jackie Cochran is not only was she a pilot, but she also had started a cosmetics line.
This
prior
is so
to this.
fascinating to me. Like, and you sent this picture along. And what's the name of the cosmetic line?
Jacqueline Cosmetics.
okay.
Cochran Cosmetics. And it was called Wings of Beauty.
Oh,
And,
okay.
Or
Okay,
Wings,
I like
I'm
that.
sorry, Wings to Beauty.
Wings to Beauty.
And
Okay.
so I'll tell you how she got involved in it. She was a pioneer of women's aviation, and her real name was Bessie Lee Pittman, and she didn't like her upbringing so much, so she told everybody she was adopted, even though she wasn't. She told everybody she was adopted, and got married at 13 or 14. She married a guy named Robert Cochran and gave birth to a son, Robert, who died before he was 5 years old. She divorced him, but she kept his name and then decided to call herself Jacqueline or Jackie. And so she changed her name from Bessie Lee Pittman to Jacqueline Cochran. And they said even though she denied her past with her family, she remained in touch with them and would provide for them over the years. And as she became successful, she had a big ranch out in California. After she remarried, her family was instructed to always say that she was adopted because she wanted to hide the early chapters of her life.
She went and told her family if someone
the family
asked
went
about
along with
me.
it because they're getting coin.
Okay, so they're making bank off Jackie, but
Right.
they can't tell her where they came.
Don't tell where he came from. So she married the second man she married, this guy named Floyd Bostwick Odlum. He was founder of Atlas Corp, CEO of RKO in Hollywood, and one of the wealthiest men in America. She had no idea he was that wealthy when she married him. 14 years her senior. He was reported to be one of the 10 wealthiest men in the world. He was enamored with her, and she had been working at Saks Fifth Avenue selling cosmetics. And she decided she wanted to do her own cosmetics for the girl on the go. She wanted to do these little perk up kits and little makeups and things that were easy to throw in a handbag and take off, and almost like things you would take as travel cases, right? Or a travel case.
Mm-hmm.
So her husband said, she said, no, I don't like being confined into one department store, one salon selling this. I need to be out there. I need to be selling. I'd like to be out in the air. He says, well, why don't you get a pilot's license? So off she went. She got a pilot's license, and she, what I just think is funny. A friend of hers offered her a ride in an aircraft, and so she began taking lessons in Roosevelt Field in Long Island in the 30s, and learned to fly in 3 weeks. And so she soloed, and then she started selling cosmetics around the country. So, she divorced Odom in 1936. But she recognized the value in the publicity of her business. So when she called her cosmetics Wings to Beauty, she flew her own aircraft around the country promoting all the products.
Oh, my God. You talk about a product tie-in, right?
Right. And years later, she used her Hollywood connection. She got Marilyn Monroe to endorse her lipstick. And so if you're watching on the video, she had these whole case. She had perfume. She had everything. She had all kinds of great things. And they said she was really one of the first. Right now they call it athleisure or something.
Yep.
But they said she really was, the precursor to that, because she wanted these things for what she called, the girl on the go. So she was things she was best known for. And 1937, she was the only woman to compete in the Bendix race, and she worked with Amelia Earhart. This was an open racing race. She set a new women's world speed record for flying. She was considered the best female pilot in the United States. She was the first woman to fly a bomber across the Atlantic. She pull up some of these other bests here that she did.
Going back for a second, the
Sure.
Bendix race was a air race, right?
It's an air race, yeah.
Was it
for
like
speed.
for speed? Okay, so was it point to point, like you had to go from?
Yeah, I don't know much about
Okay.
it. It comes up a lot, but yeah, I think you're right, John. I think it was record. It's almost like rally racing, but in the
Okay,
air,
so
I
the
think.
plane had to be a certain type of plane.
Yeah.
Maybe it was prop plane, the whole bit, and you had to go. Okay,
Yep.
it's a mad world.
Exactly. So they said she was the first woman, possibly the first woman pilot in the United States Air Force. She was the first woman to land and take off from an aircraft carrier, the first woman to pilot a bomber across the North Atlantic in 1941, the first woman to break the sound barrier, the first woman to fly a jet aircraft on a transatlantic flight, the first woman to make a blind landing without instruments, the only woman ever to be president of the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, the first woman to fly a fixed-wing jet aircraft across the Atlantic, the first pilot to fly above 20,000 feet without an oxygen
Wow.
mask, the first woman to enter the Bendix transcontinental race.
Okay, there's our answer. It's transcontinental,
And
coast to coast.
She still holds more distance and speed records than any living or dead pilot, male or female. Because of her interest in aviation, she flew the Goodyear blimp in the 60s.
Oh my God! Don't you want to know her? I wish she was still here, right?
We wish we did. All this while selling cosmetics too, right? She
And a 3-week training period for flying.
right.
This is the part that has not missed on me. 3 weeks.
She contacted Eleanor Roosevelt in 1939 and said, you really should use, as we were gearing up for war, of course. She said, there's a lot of women pilots that could be used domestically, that could do a lot of the work and do the non-combat aviation work while our pilots are going off to war. She convinced Eleanor Roosevelt of that, who obviously thought it was a great idea, and the Women's Army Corps, the WACs, were born. She also helped Britain. Britain had women pilots before us in the war, but she went over there with a group of 76 U.S. women pilots and helped the war effort. She, at the end of the war, she was hired by a magazine to report on global post-war events from World War II. She witnessed the Japanese general surrender in the Philippines. She was the first non-Japanese woman to enter Japan after the war. She attended the Nuremberg trials in Germany. And she was promoted to a colonel in the U.S. Air Force Reserve. And they said quite possibly they believe she was the first pilot in the United States for women's pilot in the United States. And exactly what you said, John. There is so much and so many other things I'm not even touching on that she did. But aside from her cosmetics line and all of her records she did with aviation and all of the awards, if you look at anything, postage stamps, and every state has honored her, and there's airports named after her. I believe there's one in L.A. There's a airstrip. But another one of these people that you would think somebody may one day do a movie about, right?
Or should do, because, everything, as you were going through her history, and it was, she goes to Roosevelt Field. She learns how to fly in 3 weeks. Then we go all the way forward, and she's flown to highest for a female pilot. She's done this, she's done this, she's done the Goodyear blimp. And all I keep thinking is, boy, I wish she lived another couple of years, because we would have loved to have had a cocktail with her, right?
What a character.
Yeah. And then throw in the cosmetics, and she gives, Ding Dong Avon's here a whole new meaning, right?
Well, and the flip comment from the husband is saying, well, if you want to do that, you better get a pilot's license. Okay. Right. And then she goes out and does it.
One.
Right. So she goes out and does it. And the next thing you know, now she's, made aviation history. So
thank you for that. I love Business Birthday, and I know all our listeners do, because I always learn something new. And these are people that we did not learn about.
No,
Tell me that I encountered this name somewhere in high school or college, right? Or even in my general reading.
I wonder, and they talk about this with African American studies or female studies, and a lot of times things are they focus around the political realm, I guess. But you'd often wonder whether if there were classes in universities. I'm sure some of the more wealthier universities that have lots of resources may have classes like this where you would find out about all these great women, for instance. Yeah. But certainly in the curriculum that I studied or that was offered, we didn't have this sort of thing. We knew Amelia Earhart, right? We all knew Amelia Earhart.
My God! And now that you say it that way, yeah, she was like the big Kahuna. I mean, who didn't know? And I think we know her because of the mysterious way she vanished.
Right.
Had she completed that flight, she still would have been very famous. But excellent Business Birthday. All right, so as we teased at the top of the show, I came across an article in Fast Company that we're going to discuss, and it's called "Coming to Grips with the Seismic Shift in Our Work and Our Lives." And it's, not lost on anybody that the event, as we call it, really transformed a lot of things, and one of them is work. And the author of this piece talks a great deal about his perception of wanting to go back to the workplace. He enjoys working in person with other people. He has a very strong feeling about that. But he is a manager, and he did, in fact, do a poll for his workers and was shocked to see that 95 or 92% of them really did not want to be there full time at the space, would prefer some type of hybrid work. And so he's kind of been, reevaluating this whole thing. And he wants us to think about something a little differently. So, we've seen in the news a great deal this term, the Great Resignation. Everybody's leaving jobs, moving to more, comfortable surroundings, or they're taking jobs where they can, in fact, telecommute or do hybrid work. And his take on this, after his discussions with his employee group, his employees, is that maybe he wants to call this the Great Embrace. And what he means by that is employee migration. The issue has two sides. Rather than think about what leadership can do to prevent great employees from leaving, we need to think about what we can do to attract them. And he sees this as very much a part of people coming to grips with, I want a better quality of life. I want to be closer to the kids. I don't want to spend 2 hours on a train or bring my lunch to work in a brown bag. And so that's where our conversation kicks off. I'm just going to say from the start that I know many, many people who are very happy to be back in person at the office, but I know an equal amount who could be happy never going back.
I was going to ask you that exact question because I was wondering. I think New York, and you and I have had this conversation several times privately and on the show. I think New York's different in that a lot of times the living arrangements, you just don't have the space as if you lived in the suburbs and you had a extra room or an office or something where you can get away. A lot of folks in Manhattan, while their apartments are quite nice, they're limited in space in some cases. So if you were two professionals working at home, one's in the kitchen, one's on the sofa, one's at the table, one's at the counter,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I can understand wanting to get out. I don't, differently than you, I don't know anybody who wanted, none of my friends want to go back. Not one person wanted to go back to the office. They all wanted to continue doing remote or figure out a way to do remote. And so that's why I was wondering where you would fall down on this. Because I know you actually said Bob was looking forward to
Oh
going
my
back.
God. Yes, he enjoys getting on the train. He enjoys the commute. He likes being at the office. And when it's quiet at the office, he's not happy. He's kind of like the three bears. There's always like if it's too quiet, it's
Right.
not good. If it's too busy, it's not good. But if it's just right, there's enough people there, things are going.
So has
But,
the infrastructure come back in New York? So in other words, where Bob would be, is the bodega open or the deli or the guy with the cart and the food out front? Or
yes and no. There's less of it, but there's delis and sandwich shops that are open, but there's fewer of them.
yeah.
And street vendors, they are there, but again, there's not quite as many. You know, I was down at Rockefeller Center last week, and I was walking over to the west side, and I went by some of the big, our old haunt over at Sirius is on 6th Avenue near Radio City Music Hall. And since you've been here during the daytime with me,
Right.
how busy that area is. Well, it's busy again, but when you look carefully, it's a lot of tourists. And all the people that worked in the skyscrapers, there's a bunch of them around, but a lot have not returned. And then I surprisingly saw a food truck parked on one of the side streets, and it had a line 25 people deep. I just randomly said to some guy, I said, "Is the food that good?" "Oh, the food's that good. It's worth the wait." And there used to be more of these guys, but they're gone now. So, and then just as another anecdotal thing, I took a yoga class a while ago, and in the past, you'd be lucky if you had 8 or 10 people, live bodies. It was packed. There was like 16 or 20 in the room, which is almost a full class. And the instructor was like, "Well, this is nice to see." So I think you nailed it on the head. I think like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, these areas with good mass transit and the infrastructure and the buildings. The flip side is another thing you made was 100% correct. Not many people have apartments that accommodate work from home. Like I'm lucky enough that when we got our new apartment, I have an office.
Right.
It's my little cave. Actually, it's a delightful little room. It's not a cave at all, but you talk to anybody else and someone will say, "I'm so tired of working at the dining room table. I can't stand it anymore. I can't work at the kitchen anymore."
Well, and if you
So,
have kids that are home with you too, I mean,
yeah.
it's the whole, the whole gamut. I because you do see in job boards and everybody talking about people wanting to do the remote work. The one thing I do think is missing, and for a lot of people that worked in corporate America, many times your second family or you've developed very close relationships with people you work for. And one of the issues in here that they do talk about is that kind of this culture of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
coupled with, I don't want to say it's your second family or your work family. You and I have said this on and on too. You're not getting that interaction on
No.
Zoom or
No.
Skype or whatever. All of the other things the ups and downs that someone has in their life, or you bump into somebody in the lunchroom or whatever you're doing. Those things don't happen, and those are so important to develop culture at work or to develop relationships at work. You need something done, you're friends with someone in a different department, they know how to handle that for you, help you out. So I think a lot of that will be lost, which is
To your point, and it's an excellent one, I had a conversation with my friend Alex, and he and his husband Tyler live out in Chicago now. And they had me on speaker. They were preparing dinner, and I asked Tyler how his new job was going because he's been at his new firm for a little bit now. Well, it's been a challenge, and the challenge specifically was the onboarding process, which, he had some comments there. But the second one was many of the people he works with now physically had been around each other before the lockdown
Right.
and before the event. Now they're all remote. He works with people all around the country, in fact, all around the world. And he's never physically met the entire team.
wow.
And so he said to me, he goes, "I missed a couple of happy hours." And I'm like, "What? Virtual? Tell me how fun a virtual happy hour is. You're
Not
getting drunk in your own apartment, right?"
you drink.
Yeah, and
Restaurant
so
of the hour.
I have to say that, and he comes from an environment where he thrives on being around people as well. I mean, just the random stuff, right? Like you run into somebody, did you watch that thing last night? Ha, I watched this. Maybe it's not work related, but it does form a fabric that I think many people rely on. And then there are those who are quite happy not having that relied on. So,
Yeah. And you're having worked for, and both of us having worked for ourselves now, are used to it.
yes, we are.
And
Yeah.
so you create things that get you out there, whether it's
Bring
for
good
you,
point.
it could be going to the gym,
Jim, it's exactly right.
or meeting somebody to go do a museum, or meet someone for lunch.
For lunch, yeah.
It still gets you out and
And your
has the
brain
same
active.
effect.
And you nailed everything perfectly, Tim. It's for me, I try to schedule a couple things a week. Definitely lunch with peers, definitely the gym, and now and then a gallery or a museum. And what you're talking about, an hour and a half, and yet it's stimulating. It gets you out, and I feel like I'm a human.
It's important to get out of the office. I never understood that with companies that frowned on that. And one of the last corporate gigs that I did for a short stint frowned on people leaving. And I remember they frowned, and I would go.
They even bought you a coffee machine, so you don't.
Because I was going to say everybody has that mid-afternoon crash, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times. And so when I worked at Subaru, there was a group. We would go to either the local coffee shop and spend an hour together talking. Still doing work, but doing it in a different environment without distraction. Or we'd go to Starbucks. And so when I went to this other place, I did that, and I was called, what are you doing? I said, I'm going out. We're having a cup of coffee. Yeah, you can't leave the building. Why? What's going on? So, yeah, they went and they bought a special coffee machine. I said, that's not the point of me
now you
going
don't have
out.
to leave. Now you could stay.
Right. No, the point is to you need it to
Get out.
Yeah, and particularly people in marketing or anything that's creative. But I would also say for anybody, it's
I agree.
important. It's
I
important to walk away
Yeah.
from your desk or the phone or something for
Yeah.
part of the day and regenerate. So do you believe in this great embrace? I guess to sum this up.
I think that if you looked at every news article that came out about how life is going to change from March or April of 2020 to today, you're going to see a lot of crap. Some of it's true, some of it's not. People made projections. I have to do this. We have to do that. I do agree that I think most workers now see that, hey, maybe I don't need to be there. And I do agree that maybe a little more flexibility. Although I did talk to a woman the other day whose husband owns a company, and she said he gave all his staff the ability to be flexible. He said, choose any days of the week, 1 or 2 days that you don't want to be in the office, with the exceptions of Mondays and Fridays.
So they got to pick Tuesday,
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday.
And the net result of that is that most people are there for the full time, and they'll
Really?
take off a Tuesday or a Thursday for kid stuff, or they'll do something from home. But and someone overheard the story and, oh, that's terrible. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's not. The guy owns the company. If he's telling you, take a day, be flexible, but not on Monday or Friday.
I've always been an advocate. If you get your work done, you leave and do what you need to do. If you're an adult, but a lot of companies that's why this in some ways, if there was a silver lining for the event, it was kind of this rebooting. What did they in this article? They talked about the old. Let's get a ping pong table in the coffee room so you'll stay longer.
And a popcorn machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get
So
massages.
Free massage. There you go.
Oh my God, Subaru was doing that, free massages. The only people that signed up were people who had nothing to do all day. I said, I would love to have a massage.
But I don't have the time. But I don't have the time.
It took over the boardroom, put up massage tables. Anyway. So, hey, but I like that story, John. Thank you. That was from Fast Company.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for joining us. As you know, we are in our 15th year, which we like to say now, and if you can believe it or not, now that everybody else has got a microphone and a podcast around the country, you can still find us just about anywhere, whether it's iHeart or TuneIn or Facebook or YouTube, or pretty much just Google us, focusgroupradio.com. You'll find John and me there, as well as our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released every Tuesday. You'll also find our sponsors there, so be sure to click on them and start shopping away. Deep Discount's been with us here for quite a while in the focus group, and we appreciate their support of us. We hope you all have a great week, and remember, don't text and drive. And I see a lot of people doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, don't text and drive. Arrive alive. See you next week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.